Good morning and a very warm welcome from Stockholm. Eva Fabry here, European Center for Women and Technology. Indeed, we meet in a very special time, and not just because it's the final webinar of our Horizon 2020 Altfinator project, but because of coronavirus COVID-19 all around Europe and globally. And we have to say that we are really thrilled to have a record number of 85 registrations for today con call. We would like to think that it is also because of the rapidly growing interest for women's startups and financing issues all around the world. So a very warm welcome to all of you who have decided to join today's call. As you know, our Horizon 2020 Altfinator project focuses on alternative financing of startups, and ECWT has been responsible for safeguarding the gender dimension of our project. Even within the project, we have experienced a rapidly growing increase of interest in not just participant countries, but the outreach countries which we would like to get interested for this agenda. I think the best for all of us is really if we give the floor to our very experienced and prominent keynote speakers of the day. The first one is Maria Giron, Executive Director of IE Business School and the Chairman of the Board at Go Beyond Investing. And yes, Maria, you're warmly welcome, so please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Eva, for the introduction, and thank you to Altfinator for this invitation to present today and to talk about Rising Tide Europe. And as you said, Eva, very well, we are in times, difficult times, and in times where leadership is going to be challenged. And we feel that this Rising Tide program that I'm going to share with you has this element of leadership, because it started by wanted to change, by some of us wanting to change a reality that we didn't like. This reality was the fact that out of investors, of angel investors, only 7% are women. So some of us, some years ago in 2015, decided to start a movement and programs that would change this reality forever. Our purpose and our mission as we started is to create opportunities for women. And we create opportunities for women in different ways. On one hand, by developing programs that give access to women to this financial literacy. The Rising Tide programs offer three elements. One is an element of education on how to invest. The second is an element of community, being part of a community with peers. And the third is the opportunity and the ability to build a portfolio of startups. So we have KPIs to measure this. On one hand, we have the KPIs that are connected to the number of women that go through our programs and become savvy angel investors to be able to do it later in their own or to join VCs if they want to. So that would be one of our KPIs. But the other one, which is also very important, is how we as a community have an impact in the companies where we invest. How do we choose them? So the companies that we choose to be invested have to be aligned with our values. How do we govern? So the companies where we are involved in governance, we want to have an impact on the pay, the conditions, and also how do we have an impact specifically on the diversity of the companies where we choose to invest. So as I said, it's education, it's community, and it's the building and investment portfolio of European startups. We started in 2015, already 3 programs in place. We're looking into our 4th one, more than 250 limited partners throughout the world in 47 countries. And the profile of our community, and maybe a lot of you here in this seminar will find yourselves very much reflected in what we describe. We have a lot of, it's mostly executive women, a lot of women who are in transition of their careers, moving from an executive position maybe to boards. Interesting that a lot of music, classical music lovers, and all of them women who have had success in their career, but they want to continue learning, and they want to be involved in a project that has a cause that it's aligned with their values. We have done already 20 investments. Some of them, or most of them, are listed here. We are missing the last few ones that we have just recently done. And as you see in this chart, we invest in very different industries, from technology, artificial intelligence, ICT, fintech, consumers, healthcare. So our portfolio is not only diversified from the industry perspective, but also from the country perspective. So this combination of companies, they are all in different countries, and we always invest in countries where there's one of us, a deal leader, who's monitoring the investment that is based there. So there's UK companies, Swiss, Spanish company TMQ, Austrian, Scandinavian, Swiss, from Ireland. So this is an additional way to diversify our portfolio. So industry diversification, but also geographical diversification. So in a summary, the way it works is that we would invest in like 8 to 12 startups over the first 12 to 18 months. And then what we usually have done is keep a certain amount of money, probably like 40% of the investable amount for second rounds. We have learned from the experience of Go Beyond investing in startups over the last few years that there's a real opportunity to increase the success ratio in these follow-on rounds. So in these follow-on rounds, we choose to invest in those that are performing better. There's the minimum. We want to make these programs accessible to very many women, because these programs are a way to learn and to build a community. So we have defined a minimum of 20,000 euros per participant, and on average, we have had between 90 to 150 participants in each of the different programs that we have launched. One thing that it's interesting is how the learning is done. It is a learning by doing. Anyone who has invested knows that this is the only way to learn, is to do it and analyze before, analyze later, and fine-tune the decisions. And this is how we put together webinars, seminars, calls, meetings, virtual meetings, where we learn by doing, guided by the group of deal leaders who are the investment committee for each of these programs. There's an investment board. I have the honor to be a member of this investment board. together with Brigitte Baumann, who's the founder of Go Beyond, a European Angel Investor of the Year in 2016, who has a large portfolio and that has done very many exits throughout her career. And Candice Johnson, who's the President Emeritus of EVAN, very active in angel investing and a true entrepreneur. To put together these programs, we have learned from the experience of Go Beyond, doing this for the last almost 10 years now, and how and not only we rely on the knowledge that was built by Go Beyond, but also on the quality of the deals that we source from them. And also many of the deal leaders or the women that are part of this investment committee come from Go Beyond with a lot of experience, not only in investing, but exiting. It is a pleasure for me to say that we are actually conducting now our first exit, and we are very happy about that. And we hope this is the one of very many that, and maybe some of them already this year will happen. This program has had a lot of visibility throughout the world, and just to feature a couple of things, Brigitte has been featured in different publications. And for me, being an alumni of Harvard Business School, this was chosen as the programs that make a difference. We also have been invited to be members of the jury of the Harvard Business School venture program, and this is connected to the support they are providing to the Rising Tide Europe program. And also, there's been, the program has had different awards and recognition. Not only the Kaufman Foundation has been a sponsor for some of the learning activities and the education material, but also Wharton on their global gender lens investing programs has identified Rising Tide Europe as one of the initiatives aligned with their values. It was selected by EVAN as the most innovative investment initiative in 2016. And all of our deal leaders or the members of the investment committee have been invited to be jury members of the European Commission for the Horizon 2020 program. This is a summary in a nutshell of what we do, and I'm eager to take some questions now or later as it works best. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, Maria, and although I do believe that the best is if we open for questions after the three presentations, I would just have one question, and it is if new rounds are planned for 2020 and 2021. Maybe that if you can comment on it with just very briefly.
Yeah. We just had our annual summit. We have a summit for the whole community of Rising Tide. We are almost 300 now. And one of the things, this happened a month ago in Barcelona, which is where we celebrate our annual summit. And one of the things that we are looking into and deciding right now is that the next round of Rising Tide 4, which is coming, it's probably going to have a focus, and it's going to be aligned either with a vertical or with a specific cause. So this is in the workings now, but definitely, yes, before the end of the year, there will be a Rising Tide 4.
Okay, thank you so much. And the other questions surely coming later to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
As our second speaker, I would like to introduce Amparo de San Jose, who is director at the IESE Business Angel Network, and she's founder of Women Angels for Entrepreneurs. And last but not least, she opens up our view towards a new continent, Latin America. So please, Amparo, thank you for joining.
Yes, hello, good morning to everybody. I hope that you are having a good quarantine. We'll try to make it a bit easier with some content. So thank you for inviting us, Eva, to be here and to showcase our experience with women angel investors. So I endorse and we share many of the things that Maria Eugenia mentioned. We just to contextualize what we do, I would like to give you two starting points. One is that we are a business school. We are not a financial intermediary, and we have a good track record as a business school. So that means we are an educational institution, and we are limited to what we can do in terms of financial intermediation. So that's the first context you need to understand. And the second is that we have an angel network that has been in operation since 2003 now. Since then, we have completed, I think, something like 256 deals, more or less, or 260 already, I think, for a bit more than 50 million from our investors, from the members of our angel network. That has been complemented to 2 to 3 times the same money from other angel investors on other sources of funding in the same rounds, and not we're not counting the money that these companies or these startups they raise in follow-on rounds, just the rounds where our investors join. So one of the particularities of this angel network, as I mentioned, is that we cannot do financial intermediation. So the best way to understand it is as we run a platform. Our angel network is a platform, and we manage the two ends. So we make sure that we have good deal flow, and we make sure that we have good investors. And also we need to make sure, because we cannot structure syndicates, deals, negotiate for investors, etc., etc. We cannot pull or push investors in or out of deals. So we need, let's say, sophisticated or professional investors or lead investors that are able to complete the deal by themselves. I mean, obviously they get together and they group, but we cannot do this kind of financial intermediation for them because we are legally binded by the university status, and we never cross the red line or a gray line. So with this background, after 3 years ago, I think that was after 15 years in operation, we realized that okay, everything was working well. As I mentioned, is every year we complete 30 investments in startups for about 4 million every year, but they were not. We had 200 investors, and I don't think that 4 years ago we could count even a dozen of women angel investors. So we thought that we had to do something just to bring more women, and at this time there was a great European Union call, and other angel networks in Europe they invited us to participate, and we started to think about how to do best this with other, also with some other angel networks that were focusing on bringing women or only women angel investors. So hopefully you see the screen well. So we started with this project that at that time was called Women Angels for Entrepreneurs. 3 years ago, the project finished 2 years ago, and we have kept this perspective in the activities of the angel network, and with the objective of having more women every single year actively investing in startups. So let me see, it doesn't run the slides here. Okay, now. So why did we decide to do this, and what were the things that we realized? After the first year of operations, we did a study in, I think it was 5 European countries, the largest ones. I would say there was, except Germany, it was the UK, Spain, Italy, France, Portugal, and Belgium, 6 countries, in fact. So what we observed was this, that the women that are engaged and interested in angel investing, as Maria Eugenia said, in familiar profiles. I mean, they are not very different to what the usual angel investment population is. Except that they are very entrepreneurial. I mean, if we see in many countries, there is the proportion of executives and directors is very large, and in particular among the women investing in startups, they are more entrepreneurial. They come more from a business creation background. And also there was something very interesting, not only for the women investment community, let's say, but for the ecosystem in general, is that women angel investors, they have a higher tendency to invest in women-led startups. So as you see, more than half of them have at least one women-led startup in the portfolio, and some of them, they have even up to 3 to 10, which is not the case for the general or the non-gender specific angel investors. And also we investigated why those women that had the profile of to become angel investors, like the rest of the ones we have in our angel networks, were not investing. So the first thing is that this was among the women that were not investing. Then when we asked women that were investing, the priorities or the reasons that they thought that were the reasons for other women not investing are a bit different. So if you ask women that are not investing and we thought that they could, what you see is that half of them, well, they're probably younger, or they have kids, or they have other life stage priorities. Almost half of them as well, they didn't know about angel investment. It's not that they don't know how to invest, it's that they never heard of angel investment. And also this is because there's financial advisors, they do not consider angel investment as a suggestion or as an activity for women. So they are not into the right network, they don't network with other angel investors, so they really don't know about the existence of the possibility of these activities. Also, there is a good percentage that they consider there is a high risk, but it's also the perception of risk is normally associated to the knowledge that you have of something. So if you don't know anything, or you don't know much, probably your perception of risk is very high. As I mentioned, they also don't network in the right context. So they don't know their co-investors, whom to invest, and they lack of time and also financial knowledge. So let me go to the next. So another thing that we saw is that even for those women that were investing already in startups, there were some characteristics that we needed to pay attention, because the segment of, or the sector of women angel investors is not necessarily the same as the non-gender specific one, because there are some specific traits, because the market or the women joining this activity are very new, or the activity is very recent. So you can see that they have, most of them, 3/4 of them, they have been doing this for less than 5 years. There is something that is very worrying, that they do it alone. Many of them, they do solo investments. They also have good amounts to invest, which means that makes very difficult portfolio diversification if you don't co-invest, and also that the upside for your returns is in absolute terms is very limited if you cannot invest this kind of quantities, and they have a very small portfolio yet. So in conclusion, that there was a problem for women, as this Maria Eugenia also summarized very well. So women that are not investing, they don't have, it's not only that they don't have returns, it's they don't have access to innovative startups or to the innovation ecosystem in general, which doesn't only bring returns, but it also brings, in terms of your professional opportunities, professional career, or any other kind of upsides, and also your absence of innovations. So with all these inputs, what we did is that we designed a program to run in all the European countries where we have a partner, and the one that we structured for Spain had these characteristics. First, we identified women that could fulfill the profile of becoming an angel investor. This, in the case of IESE, was based on our experience, on the investors that we have, and the ones that are more active. So we identify women first, and then We invited the best profiles, so not the best profiles, the profiles that fit better with our also with our scope of activity, of our positioning in the angel market. And then we train them, we help them to understand what is angel investing about. We help them to know all the people that are doing this. We help them with offline and online activities. And they also had a kind of a mentor, a coach, or an ambassador. We call them an ambassador, because we didn't want to have women mentored and men not being mentored. So we avoid officially we avoid the mentor or the coach word. So they work with us for over a year, coming once a month before every angel investment forum. Then they had some contents, and then they joined the angel network where they can see directly opportunities and interact with other investors. And also we help them to go through these first steps of the activity. So if you are a bit curious, this is what we were doing. We were hosting them for a year with us over 10 months from September to July, and we structured the contents that they needed, the main contents they needed to know to become familiar with angel investment, or with the process of angel investment. They also had their meetings with the ambassadors and the networking activities that we were offering for the general population. So our targets were this: have trained 500 women angel investors, activating, let's say, 100 of them, and also having a double effect, or a double positive effect on women entrepreneurs being financed by these new women entering the market as investors. So as I said, this is what we did. We are running the third edition now, and what happened in the first edition is that the first year we trained 100 women. The second year we trained more or less about the same. This year we have split the program because it was Barcelona, Madrid all together, video conference, the sessions the content sessions. And for the third year we have 2 programs. We are running one in Madrid now, and we don't know now because we don't have we are a bit stopped on the physical activities, on the presential activities, and we are supposed to run another one in Barcelona. I think that we got to almost 2 million invested in women-led startups, and there is the women of the first promotion. From the first promotion, they launch their own angel club or angel club only for women, investing in women-led startups. So they have a double loop of women in the market, in the entrepreneurial finance ecosystem. And this is what we are doing. So this is our third edition. We are about to complete in a month the third edition. So this is everything from my side. Thank you.
But I am muted now. Thank you. Thank you so much, Amparo, for this exciting summary. And we'll come back to you with questions after the third presentation. The third speaker for us today is Olga Afanasyeva, who is CEO of Ukrainian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, and co-organizer of Ukraine House Davos. After all, Maria and Amparo gave us a very nice overall picture about what is happening in Europe. However, I would like to say that within our Altfinator project, Olga took us with storm, in the sense that she has been very active in a country and a region that opens up new opportunities and possibilities for many. So we are excited to have you on board, Olga, please.
Thank you for having me. I hope you see my screen and everything works.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eva, for invitation. I'm very happy to participate today with the great ladies. My name is Olga, and I'm the CEO of Ukrainian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, which is the organization that unites currently more than 50 companies, which are venture capital funds, private equity funds, accelerators, incubators, and other active players of Ukrainian investment market. Our members are not only from Ukraine, but from all over the world, from United States of America, which is very active, which has very active investors in Ukraine, as well as from Europe. So we are like having quite wide international interest to the companies which we support. In my previous life, as a joke, I was doing research. I was working in academia for about 10 years. I continued doing this part-time because you can never get rid of, lecturing and the inspiration you're getting from raising students. After that, I was working at the Warsaw Stock Exchange in Ukraine office, and then UVCA happened to my life, and this is where I am. Apart from that, and apart from all the projects that we do in association, 2 years ago we founded the community which is called European Women in Venture Capital. On this slide you can see the founding members. Initially it was started by Kinga Stanislavska, whom you see on the top left corner. She's the partner of Experience Venture Fund in Poland. And then here are some numbers. So this is the community of senior women investors, managing partners, founders of venture capital funds and business angels, as well as CEO and chairwomen of investment associations like UVCA and business angel clubs and so on. We started in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, just from 7 countries, from Poland, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Estonia, Slovenia, and Hungary. And currently we have ambassadors in around 19 countries from Europe as well as Israel. And the community unites 350 women approximately from all over Europe and actually beyond. The aim of what we do is to create the network of women who are ready to share the experience, to share like more practical, like information about the deals, to co-invest together, and actually to encourage and motivate each other. We are organizing the meetups and investment tours to different country ecosystems. In particular, what we have been experiencing is the first event in Warsaw. Then we had then there was a tour to Tel Aviv for ladies investors, and then we had the meetup in Berlin, which actually you can see on this right down corner on the picture. We had more than 100 women, and this was the time when actually men were allowed to join. Usually how we do, so we are open for like new members to join, new partners to lead the events or the investment tours to their own countries, like it was in the places you can see on the slide in Warsaw, Berlin, Tel Aviv, and Tallinn. So like all of us are happy to to help to attract more people and to finally to raise awareness about the opportunities for women, as was mentioned by the previous speakers. Then like in the next part of my presentation, I would like to say a couple of words on what situation is in Ukraine with female participation in venture capital and investment sector, as well as entrepreneurship activity, and how many female founders do we have. So for those of you who are not very much familiar with Ukraine, which is a normal situation, it would be actually interesting to see what is the geographical scope of the audience after the webinar. So a couple of words on what we have here in Ukraine. This is the recent data. So the last year, in 2019, we had the increase of investments in about like 1.6 times, and it was the first time when the amount of venture capital investments into companies which were founded by Ukrainians and have significant representation in the country was more than $500 million US, which is quite a positive trend, as you see from this small chart. The only drop was in 2016 because of the crisis, political and actually war situation in my country. But with the time, the situation has changed, and more investors are coming and interested. They're like the companies out of Ukrainian success stories are raising awareness, which really helps. We currently have 2 unicorns, which is the spell check company, like spell check in English writing, where you're using your browser or Gmail or any other application on the laptop. It's called Grammarly. And the second is open source platform for developers, which is called GitLab. They are both founded by Ukrainians, and unfortunately no female founders in these companies, but this is the trend that is changing, and I will tell it in my next slide. So actually, I think one of the person who inspired me to do this research mostly was Eva. When we had the conversation earlier at the Altfinator board meetings, I decided, like, why not to make the research on how many female founders did the companies have, like among the startups that raised funds like last year. We annually do the report, which is called the Overview of Venture Capital and Private Equity Industry in Ukraine. And for this new report, which will be published in April, we've collected the information on not only how much amount of venture capital funds was raised, but also who are those founders who were so successful, let's say, last year. And well, of course, the data was as not like super inspiring as I still thought, but it's not that bad as well. So let's focus on that. In the first column, I structured the information that we gathered and the trends that I've spotted. So among the 180 companies approximately who fundraised last year, about 13% of startups had female founder or female co-founder. Usually this was the group of co-founders among which were 1 or 2 females. But well, probably, like, according to the global statistics, is more or less in line. Like 13% is not that upsetting, let's say. And the other interesting trend that I've spotted is that most of the female founded companies that raised capital were at the early stage, like seed and pre-seed. This is the evidence of the fact that more and more female are becoming entrepreneurs, which was not the case, which was not really the case previously. So like this gender equality is becoming stronger here in the ecosystem, and well, I see more and more entrepreneurs want to be among actually women and younger girls. If we look at the investment funds and angel investors, so the trend is also very interesting, and the statistics is not that bad. We have several leading venture capital funds who have female partners or president or the founder of the fund. The leading private equity fund, which is called Horizon Capital, is founded and managed by female. They have been like active in the region for several years, and the CEO and the president and also the founder is actually the woman, Lena Kosharny. Also, we have the angel community called UAngels and UVCA, which I represent. They both led by female CEOs and CEOs. And the chairwoman of the Angel Club is also the woman. So I think like in that sector we're have more or less balanced structure. Though among the angel investors we don't spot many much of the balance, and the reasons are the similar as Amparo had mentioned in the results of the research that they have made. Well, like to inspire yourself, I will leave here a couple of links. The first is the podcast run by Esprit Devora. She's from LA Women in Tech community, and she's really inspiring. She travels all over the world like digital nomad and interviewing a lot of ladies from the founders of tech startups to entrepreneurs and angel and venture capitalists, and interview them like to understand what had influenced them to find themselves at the place where they are. And I would be actually happy to connect with you ladies with Esprit to make the podcast. And the other link is the podcast that was recently we have recently recorded with my colleague from Amsterdam, and we had ladies from different continents, Esprit from LA, me from Ukraine, and the Akane lady from tech industry from Japan, so across the continents. Yeah, and that's it. Would be happy to answer additional questions, and feel free to contact me with the mean that is more convenient to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olga, and I would like to stress that I'm really thrilled to see that our discussions and meeting have resulted in a highly interesting country report from the Ukraine, and we can just wish that more and more countries, especially the ones where we have run Altfinator, will release similar country reports so we have more comparable data. Thank you so much. With the three presentations, I think we have completed the most important part of our agenda today, but the really interesting follow-up comes now when we would like to hear from our audience what ideas these presentations have raised, and what questions you have to our three presenters. So I leave it to all of you who have been with us to come up with questions for the remaining 15 minutes.
Yeah, we have one question actually for Olga that is from Karsten Wetflat, and it says, are startups using crowdfunding platforms as well as, and what is the perspective of venture capitals about crowdfunding in the Ukraine?
Thank you for the question. Well, regarding the crowdfunding situation is interesting. A lot of startups out of Ukraine, they are launching crowdfunding campaign, and actually this is seen as the effective measure not only to raise initial capital for financing the manufacturing of the product, mostly for hardware, but not limited to, as well as for raising awareness and to have in that form like PR campaign, basically, to get the first customers to touch the ground if it's interesting or not. But the fact is that most of crowdfunding campaigns are launched on the American platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. This scheme of crowdfunding is not fixed very well currently in Ukraine's legislation. That's why most of the products are launching on the American platforms, which I've mentioned, as well as the American market and like as the next European market are seen as more interesting because of their huge size for the innovative entrepreneurs. So it's mostly Indiegogo and Kickstarter. I hope I answered the question.
Personally, I would like to say that I would like to understand the psychology of European webinars, because I'm very often invited to webinars organized by US organizations focusing on women in STEM and STEM entrepreneurship and innovation. And frankly speaking, what is a huge difference is that in the American webinars, actually the participants are always so keen to compete on who is putting up questions, so that the webinar could be twice as long as it normally is. So I don't really understand why we have some issues in our webinars in Europe when it comes to follow-up discussions, but I'm sure there is a place for improvement. Just to move ahead, before summarizing, I would like to ask our three presenters if they would be ready to give each of you three good advice to our participants in the call in regard to why to invest in women's startups, and also if you have any reflections around in what way to kick off this in a practical way. So three good advice from each of you, if possible. Thank you.
We have 4 more questions right now. So first one is, I think it's for Olga. How important are business magazines such as Edition F in Germany for the promotion of female entrepreneurs?
Question? Can you repeat or
Yeah.
send me the question, please? Because I didn't get the first part. Sorry.
Yeah. How important are business magazines such as Edition F in Germany for the promotion of female entrepreneurs?
Business magazines?
Yeah.
I don't really understand the connection. Sorry.
She says that Edition
If it
is a business magazine focusing on female entrepreneurs.
Okay. Okay, I got it. I think if the business magazines, newspapers, online platforms, which are covering this topic, are doing it in the interesting way. I mean, like for appealing people to make them want to read the information, to receive something new and applicable to their activity or to their life. I mean, personal or business life. That's great, of course, because this is one of the way of making the culture of gender equality popular, to involve more diverse people in this processes. I mean, of venture capital investing and of entrepreneurship, because for me, this topic is not about like let's put women everywhere. It's about the gender equality, and currently at this stage of our development, we have underrepresentation of women at C-level positions in entrepreneurship, in tech, in investment activity, and this is something that have to be fixed. And because it's okay, like all people are fine. I mean, men and women, but by our nature, we see things a little bit differently. If women are more inclined to mention one things, like probably details, they're more empathetic, like traditionally, and in most cases, and men are usually seeing the general picture. So and like focused on, you know, like achieving and so on. Like when we have these opposite views together, that brings more to the project overall. And covering these success stories in business magazines, in different ways, like to publish this information is of course very important, if I understood the question correctly.
Yes. Another comment from Dimitri Gagliardi. I have a question for all three presenters. Thank you first of all. To what extent their activities are engaged to the creation, development, and marketing of financial technologies, including alternative means of finance? Who wants to start?
Well, I did. Can you repeat the question, because I'm not sure that I understood the question?
Yeah.
To what extent?
To what extent your activities are engaged to the creation, development, and marketing of financial technologies?
Of financial technology. We are not sector specific. I mean, if I understand the question, is to what extent we engage in financing the startups from the fintech sector.
Yeah.
No,
or
not in particular. Sorry.
Or alternative means of finance. So crowdfunding, for example, crowdfunding, venture capital.
I mean, if we engage with other sources of finance. Yeah, I mean, yes, we do, and no, we don't. We don't formally. It depends on the entrepreneurs. If they want to combine different sources of funding, they can do so. For us, as I mentioned, we are not a financial intermediary as such, and then we don't structure the deals in which we invest with other investors, whether they are crowdfunding platforms or other angel networks, etc. But I think that there is a natural space to co-invest for a certain crowd equity, a very professionalized crowd equity platforms with angel investors. And also we are seeing in many European countries is that there is a new batch of VCs that are investing at very early stage, also with angel investors. So I think that the angel investors in certain countries are not isolated anymore in the traditional equity gap. Assuming that I understood the question correctly.
Okay. Okay, I would like to jump in here and tie the question to a comment. You know, as I was listening to my colleagues, one of the things I realized, Amparo was mentioning, you know, Women Angels for STEAM, which is an angel group. This angel group is one of the investors of Rising Tide Europe. So what we see here is the opportunity to build alliance throughout the ecosystem. So addressing the question that was just referring to different ways of financing, what we see is that we are part of an ecosystem where there are many opportunities to collaborate, and definitely from our side, and it's so good to find that we are already doing it even without knowing it. You know, there's all of the entrepreneurial initiatives that have been described here are in different ways or have the opportunities in different ways to collaborate. There's one other thing where I want to make a comment and put some emphasis, and it's connected to the presentation by Olga. You know, we all want, at least I'm sure the ones here in this call, to increase the number of entrepreneurs. And one of the things we realize, and this is one of the reasons behind starting the Rising Tide program, is that one of the main difficulties, and you showed it in your data, Olga, women entrepreneurs are very often in the very early stage, And what happens to them is that they have difficulties in having access to capital. So we see them in seed rounds, and then we don't see them anymore in Series A and Series B. They have this difficulty. Could it be that they have this difficulty, that women entrepreneurs have a difficulty accessing capital because there's few women in the VC space? There's few women on the investor side? It could be. We cannot conclude it, but there seems to be a correlation. So, so this is why it's good that we are all addressing this issue. It's not only the issue of women entrepreneurs, but the issue of women investors. Because if we solve the latter, we will be also addressing and providing more opportunities for women entrepreneurs to grow.
As our time is almost up, I would like to say that the comment you made, Maria, is, I think, extremely relevant, and also, as I experience it, we can say that it could be the biggest takeaway from our discussion today, because Altfinator as a project that has also focused on trying to highlight the importance and the need for more women startups and more alternative financing to women startups. Our project will formally have a final conference on the 6th of April. This event should have taken place in Budapest, but it is already decided that this will be also in the form of a webinar. And having said that, I would like to add that the project ends, but our hope and ambition is really to say that the collaboration being taken to the next level is just beginning. So we sincerely hope that both the organization represented in the webinar today, in collaboration with Altfinator hubs that will be hopefully started up after the end of the program, drive this agenda. And having said that, I would really once again like to say a very warm thanks to our three presenters today, and like to thank also our audience, and finish off by saying that please fill in the survey that you will be asked to fill in after our session, and we look forward to being in contact with you, and also starting active collaboration around increasing the number of women startups with the help of more women financiers. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. And also Maria and Olga.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.